quiet. I hope you guys are not getting tired.
The heat.
The heat. It's hard in this.
It's not
So, questions, if there are any? Yes. So then, if we effectively want to start cultivating a practice, then one should not be discouraged by the fact that the teachings themselves are so vast and so profound. Now, when we think about how to start cultivating a practice, then we should not think about too far ahead immediately. We need to take care of how we behave, how we think, and how we talk in the 24 hours that we have in a day. So you take it day by day. So then how do one initially begin on the path? Then a simple way to do this is to approach a day with the motivation that if I'm not able to help someone, at least in this 24 hour, I'm not going to intentionally and actively harm someone else. So when you start from that place, then you have the basis upon which to build or cultivate your practice. And as this practice builds up, then you can extend, you can open your motivation, this motivation to actively benefit or actively help others over a period of time. And when you do that, then you can cultivate the practice of love and compassion in your daily engagements with people and so forth. And then through that kind of process, one gradually develops on the path wherein you open your motivation to the altruistic intention after a while, which is the bodhisattva ideal, wherein you open your motivation and your activities to benefit all sentient beings, anyone you come into contact with. And then you develop the path from there forwards to what we call the 5 paths and the 10 grounds and so forth. So all of these starts from how we behave and engage ourselves in one day. And this is very important to keep in mind. And a simple way to do that, simple way to start cultivating this practice is to, as we already discussed, adhering to a sense of morality, guided by the fact that one is motivated not to engage in the 10 non-virtuous acts of the body, speech, and mind. So if you are able to actively guard oneself against and look at the mind in a day to safeguard oneself against engaging in non-virtues in a day, then you can build your practice effectively from there. Yes. So then it is very important to realize at this point that when you are asked the question that would you be able to practice these things for the rest of your life, then it becomes very difficult. Initially we have a sense of resistance that, when we think about I have to do this all the time. But then when you are asked the question that would you be able to practice this for just one day, then you have a sense of confidence that you will be able to adhere to this for one day. And through this kind of approach, then one begins to train the mind to do it for longer periods of times. And this is very important because when we think about life in absolute terms. We think that this life is this absolute thing, this absolute experience that we have, wherein life is lived and experienced in moments. And if life is lived and experienced in moments, then our practice should be cultivated in moments too. So then, when you're asked if you will be able to cultivate this practice for a day, and then if that is hard, then try to think if you'll be able to cultivate this practice for half a day, 12 hours, then for an hour. And then when you realize this, that you are able to do it for a short duration of time, then you can gradually train your mind, train yourselves to be consistent with the approach as well as the cultivation of the practice. So this is very important to realize. If you have one moment of cultivation of good practice, then you can build from there. It's not that you have to always think about like far ahead all the time. So you can build your practice in this manner, realizing that life is experienced and lived in moments, so it naturally follows that practices should also be cultivated in moments too.
Just to quickly add to this, I wrote a little 4-point summary of what we've been talking about that maybe can be confirmed if it's like actionable. But firstly, just realizing suffering and what causes it is a first step. And then implement the 4 powers. Take refuge in the 3 jewels. And then practice Dharma, which is guarding the 3 doors. Kind of based off of these conversations, that would be an accurate, actionable plan from what we've discussed.
Tako idila idu Korangi sula di Trinity shini du susra. Korangi chendo dan sidi jayra. Tila tanna tanda tiwa di kuyu du zamba. Korangi samlende du istang yusra. Tambo dungi imba nguzi chigo res. Di jila ni ta tanda wadu ni nyamba mamusa di jujira. Nyambu topshi ki mune shawa chigo res. Sumba di ni changro la chugo chigo res. And what was the last one?
Practice Dharma, which is guarding the 3 doors.
Dijela ni chönyamni chigoris. Chönyamni la dige ni gosum giju nijura nijune ya sungwares chönyamni ki. Ani tatsu dinde dojira. Ani tatsu dinde dojina ani nyamni dinde gi juni china digyoreves.
Yeah, 그러게 이치도 마레인 로지라. 근데 오늘 진짜 거래 야제 맞아 가르치고 있느라 좋아 트레이닝 대군도 정말 내려오라. 마레도 지금 빼고 드시더라. 정말 아버지 좋지 있어.
So So then this is very good, the fact that you took these notes, and then this is a very good summation of the points that are being discussed so far. And I really thank you for your attention in the classes, and thank you for so concisely summarizing the essential points of the teaching so far. Yes. So then it gives me really great joy when I hear this kind of sharing, because all of us are putting in the effort to make this an effective session for all of us. The teacher is giving these teachings, the translator is putting in the effort, and you are also paying attention and have dedicated so much time and effort to come to these teachings. So it's nice if we have something to show for the participation of our show for the participation in these teachings. So it's very good, and I'm sure the rest of you have also paid equal attention to the teachings too.
Can I ask a question about what Yogesh said? You said 5 something and 10 something.
5 paths and the 10 grounds.
5 paths and 10 grounds. Are we going to cover it?
Maybe difficult. The sachuda lamna lejura tinganzo chudurchigiri vel kejiri.
Sa di sachuda tam kaburu de langa ta no choba. Ine tanda no chira ite de lo na kachen tu mali do. Zamanya me chari kale kale kawari ta ra. Desin do. Ine tanda no sa ra ye thoji na mai machine ya ra. Ati dizati kechi. Ati kenza lo do ye ne ma ne sama. Amsa dene do na dene ya oi ma da ma sa hai.
So then it might be tough to discuss the 10 grounds themselves, but I think it is possible that we will come to a discussion about the 5 paths, and this will come in our discussion about the great 6 great perfections. And it's important to not immediately look at the higher levels of teachings. You need to build a solid foundation first. It's like climbing a ladder. So immediately if you jump onto the top of the ladder, then there's the risk that you immediately fall down if you do not have a solid foundation. So it's important to take step onto each rung of ladder first effectively to effectively understand the teachings. Yes. So then when we are talking about the 6 perfections, then in the traditional monastic education, then you spend 5 to 6 years just studying the 6 great perfections. So if you really want to get into a detailed understanding, then it's almost impossible to discuss this. And then in the traditional monastic education, you spend at least 25 years studying the 5 great treatises. So it takes a lot of time, effort, and gradual education in order to get a comprehensive view about all these teachings. But what we can do here is to discuss back and forth, and then come to a basic understanding of what these teachings really mean. What do we mean by the 6 great perfections? Something that we can relate to our own experiences. Otherwise, if we talk about the 6 great perfections, each perfections, there are texts this thick.
Singro Giant, Tabo, Lunzicho, Zavalos, para Zavalos, and Zavalos and Gengi, and that is the Shija city. Zavalamanda was in development here, Jamaica, the break of the Mongol, so the little Badi, Suzuki, and Yavan, Bishop, Lord Savadi, the children, so the candidate Robert Matter, etc. Killing Mamma over. 다리 이미서로 사이 많이 미서로 배 제바처럼 먹으체다. 제가 나도 나는 세대다 버시는 나 지금 중에 나는 세대다 버리 배기 따지야 버시는 좀 봐봐시고 집어로. 좀 봐보시는 직신에 야야 이제 지시에 줘야 제가 먼저 그 중으로 가면 야 제바처럼 직 다디수선에 야야 이제 지요 단도 더워요. 아니 또 벌써 이게 파이게 시에 야 다디수선에 야 단도 가도 돼. 이대로 위치하더라. 아니 이제 아니 저 전에다
So then, to come to a true understanding of the teachings, then it's a constant process of learning, constant process of investigation. So I think it wouldn't hurt at this point to tell you what a day looks like in a classical, traditional monastic institution for a monk or a nun. And so then, when you wake up in the morning, you wake up very early in the morning, at 5 or 4 in the morning, and then immediately you're called to the prayer meeting, wherein you pray for the people who have passed away, you pray for the people who are going through sickness, and then after that morning prayer sessions, then you immediately go to your classes, and in these classes you not only study about Buddhism, you also study about history and all these other miscellaneous subjects too, but the main focus is of course on Buddhism and its teachings. So now, even in the Buddhist classes, then there are many different topics one has to study, and one of the topics that is studied is dialectics. Dialectics, or what is known as the collected topics of epistemology and so forth. So when you first learn these type of texts, then you have to memorize a lot of things. You have to memorize a lot of root texts, and when you have to spend some time memorizing it, and then just memorizing the text does not help. Then you go to these classes and the teachers discuss each of these words, a word-to-word commentary on these root texts. And when you do that, then you only do not do it just by referring to one textual source. You kind of look at the commentary of the past Indian masters. You look at the commentary of the same root text by Tibetan masters. You take into account all of these different perspectives and commentaries. And when you do that, then the teacher gives you a word-to-word commentary. And not only that, now you have to go, after you finish your classes, you gather again in the debate courtyard in the evening. And then there you debate each word, each verse, days on end, weeks on end, months on end, to come to a true understanding of the topic. So when you come, so the Buddhist process of investigation is likened by us to peeling away layers of onion, wherein when you peel away the first layer, you feel like the layer is off, but then there's another layer you need to peel off. So it's like that. It's a constant process of learning, constant process of investigation, because when you are debating, one day you feel like your position is now safe, your assertion or your assertion is now logically sound, but when you keep debating, then you begin to realize that it is not such a sound understanding of the text, and then you do this again and again and again, unless and until you come to an assertion that cannot be refuted by logic and reasoning at all. So this is the kind of Buddhist approach to coming and understanding of the teachings. So it takes years, it takes effort. So this is the kind of effort and time that it takes to come to a true understanding of these teachings. So it's very hard in a short time to come to a full understanding of the teachings just by listening to a teaching once. You have to always contemplate on your own, investigate on your own, and it's a constant process of learning.
알아요. 지금도 전화로 오시고 내가 저희 집에 나와니 뭔가 진짜 주지 중이거든요. 같이 대사 가다 보면 주 담보도 저것저것 여기 전화 번호시 하고 지야네. 영무시 우츠 통화는 이것도 가서 쓰는 거라. 어떤 저거 쇼긴 하고 앉아서 하는데 미쳤다 로직만 니 뭐 인식자라는 항상 얘기해요. 라 내가 가서 지나게 시소 나오라 내가 지금 쇼기 치즈 그번에 거 주고라 나는 맞아 나와서 찾아요. 알레 치즈 뒤에 마시 치고 타와니 내가 쇼기 치즈 가니 건도 치즈 주지 담보거든. 라 근데 월드도 봐. 아이딩이 너는 칼라사나레 제다소나레 처라소나레 미지 통화서 된다면 띵띵띵 거 따다 들고. 라 지금 어느 생각 근데 깔리 투페 도스. 라 미미 이제 나와는 그 치즈 그거를 다 가셔야 돼. 생각 치즈 유지라. 잡아든 얘기 같대. 영다로 치즈 그번에 안 치즈 나와서 나제 뒤지는 치즈 나와로. 쇼기 치즈 그거보다 스팅 다니면 있어서 가르치는 거라. 제가 먼저 쇼기에 람보데 람보다 띵이 따오니 지 보다다 많이 받아. 띵이 오르고. 데이니가 내가 보여요. 가시미 있다가 다 근데 술로는 점점 장자를 보다 그 집으로 사야 또 이제 집밖에 지기서 말도 되는 거예요. 근데 그 문제는 좀 있어야 되는 거지. 이거는
So then from the outside, when lay people and people from the outside look at monks and nuns, then they sometimes get the idea that monks and nuns, they do not really have to worry about a lot, and they do not really need to do too much, because they think that normal people have to kind of earn a living and go kind of earn a living and have to have so many engagements, wherein when you look at a monk or a nun, then you, from the outset you get the impression that they live simple lives without too much effort. They just eat, sleep, and that's the kind of impression that people get. But when you stay in a monastic institution and then you look at the schedule of a day, the curriculum of a day, then you realize that it's not an easy thing to be a monk or a nun. When you dedicate yourself to the pursuit of the study of the scriptures, it's not an easy life. In the nunnery we wake up early in the morning at the when the bell rings at 5 or 4 in the morning, and then up until 12 midnight we are always busy. When the bell rings we have to gather. When the bell rings we have to go to prayer sessions, we have to go to classes, we have to be in the debate courtyard. So after class we debate until like midnight, and this is not just for one day or 1 year. This is continuously for 20 years until you graduate. And then even furthermore, in the southern monasteries, the great seats of learning, in the southern monasteries, the monks debate even in the up towards the dawn of the morning, like 3 or 4, 2 or 3 in the morning, because in the south it's quite hot, so the weather is much more cooler in the night. So this is the kind of dedication and effort it takes to really pursue the study of Buddhism. So it's not an easy life. And now when we look at that, then that we learn that impression that lay people have of monks and nuns is not really justified, because monks and lay people, when they go to job, it's normally a 9-to-5 job, wherein they have to dedicate their effort and attention and time to that. After that, they have some sense of freedom to do whatever they want after that. But then in the monastic institution, in the pursuit of the study of Buddhism, it's not like that. It's every day you have to follow discipline. You have to go to these things when the bell rings. And it's not just for a year or two. It's continuously for 20, 25 years until you pass and graduate. Yes.
그래서 우디기 있다나 그거 가지시는 무조건 치는 남산 마실에 남산 시슈셔도 참 폰도 시슈시게 뭐라 세상 근데들이 까지도 결혼생이나 근데 무슨 맛이 그래 봐. 네. 단대디기 제가 참 시에를 타와도 한참 그렇게 깔고 그러라. 네. 내가 마시도 않아. 이게 싶었더니 뭐 받고 좋나요. 근데 이제야 가서 집어도 무슨 집으로라. 이거라.
So then the reason that I wanted to share this is to kind of clarify that when you are studying the Dharma, do not get the impression that you will understand everything in one go or just by sitting for a teaching. It takes a lot of contemplation, it takes a lot of investigation and a lot of effort to come to a true understanding of the Dharma. And do not, I'm sure, you wouldn't be mistaken that just by studying a text, a simple text, you will be able to achieve liberation and enlightenment and so forth. These are like impressions that one should not get. It takes years of study, years of contemplation to actually come to a true understanding of the Dharma. Yes. So then, the reason that I'm sharing how a day looks like for a monk or a nun in a traditional monastic institution is to exactly give you an idea of what it takes to study the Dharma and come to a true understanding of the Dharma. Because if you are under the impression that this is something that appeals to me, and then I'll be able to understand everything and be able to cultivate a practice just by attending a teaching, then there is this danger that you will get discouraged immediately. Whereas if you have an idea of what it really takes, then you will be more consistent and you will not be so discouraged immediately when you do not have that wrong impression. And when our teachers used to teach us the Dharma, then they used to make the point that when you are studying and cultivating the practice, do not do it with the impression that you are going to do everything in a few days, 2 or 3 days. Do not have that approach. And then do not even do it with the intention that you are going to do it by dedicating all your effort and all your things just solely for the Dharma, forsaking all, like your diet, your sleep, and so all that. This is not a good approach too. What is being advised here is a gradual, consistent effort, a gradual, consistent approach is needed to study the Dharma. Yes. Sure. So then if there are no questions at this point, we will continue with the root text itself. Yes. So then now we've come to the 21st verse. Generating the mind is the central axle of the supreme path. So herein it talks about the generation of the altruistic mind of bodhicitta. So the mind here refers to the altruistic intention of bodhicitta. So So altruistic in the sense that it takes into account the well-being of all sentient beings, not just oneself or one's own immediate family and friends. So generating the mind is the central axle of the supreme vehicle path. The supreme vehicle path here refers to the Mahayana path. So then the question arises at this point, what do we really mean by generating the mind of bodhicitta? And the subsequent question arises, what do we really mean by bodhicitta? So bodhicitta is that altruistic intention aimed towards elevating the suffering of all sentient beings, aim towards achieving enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. So this is the kind of concise definition of the bodhicitta mind. This intention that you want to achieve enlightenment in order to alleviate the suffering of all sentient beings is the definition of bodhicitta. So in order to cultivate practice in the Mahayana path, then this bodhicitta, this intention is like the main pillar which holds together the practice.
Just a quick clarification. So the intention is to achieve enlightenment for other beings. Just to make sure I understand.
거기 뒤어들 아니 전주선바는 독도를 날스라 아니 심지 타다기 치도스라 수수상지어 되어 데려왔어. Yes.
For yourself, to benefit the sentient.
Yeah, but the primary intention to achieve enlightenment is for
Is to help
beings.
all sentient beings.
나도 있는 단절로 제시야. 나사제 로치는 나도 님이 붙이는 거다. 근데 가디스 아니 가마다 니 비야다 니 기계카다 내 시중에서 전주선발에 로지치 보지. 현심제 탐지. 매매 용도 심제 가지고 시미 가래 로아도 심제 가래 삼이 니 자서 되게 로지치는 거 아니고 대칭 내야 되더라. 지나면서 대바들 이제 대바지 이제 대바 손이라. 대바샤고 근데 대칭 라고 로 상코다니도 그 대신에 지주제와 담바야 되게 로 상코다
So then when we think about the motivations that we generally have regarding enlightenment and liberation and so forth, then if we are being honest, then we only think about ourselves. I want to be liberated from suffering. And then we can maybe extend that kind of motivation towards who we call our family, who we call our friends. But then the bodhicitta intention is not like that. It takes into account all sentient beings, not just human beings, all forms of life in samsaric existence. And this is why it is called the altruistic intention. And the reason why the Mahayana path is called the supreme vehicle path is not because the practitioners have prestige or so on and so forth. It's just because the door through which one enters the Mahayana path of practice is exactly this, the altruistic intention of bodhicitta. So the scope of the motivation, intention dictates the title that is given to the path of practice. The reason why it's called Mahayana path or supreme vehicle path. Listen.
이제 전주선배 주변에 되게 너무 좀 아주 많은 상담도 해보셔야 미리 네 제시를 상담도 하고 같은 거 되죠. 로이를 마셔야 되더라. 그래서 산에 좀에 대해 또 보고 마셔서 미져야지 그래서 우리 땅을 유지해서 그러. 그래서 땅을 매 그러나 뭐 있어라다. 전주 저것도 시도를 시도되더라. 그래서 전주선배가 무슨 그런 일이 단지 따라가지 못한 리시도 먼저 거기도 누구 직도 문제라는 칼레가 아 근데 지전 전주선배가 로제 먼저 됐다는 항상 얘기했죠.
So then such an intention, such a motivation, which we call bodhicitta, is when we think about it, it's almost impossible and it's almost beyond us when we think about it like that. And it's so profound. It takes into account this kind of motivation is so profound and so vast that it takes into account the suffering of all sentient beings. And there are many examples of the deeds of the bodhisattvas. For example, when we talk about one of the previous lives of the Buddha himself, he was born, there is a story that he began to, when he saw a tigress and was very weak, and then she had to feed her cubs. She had just given birth, and then when he saw that the tigress couldn't give milk to the cubs, then he knew that the cubs were at the danger of dying. So then he started to sacrifice his own limbs to the tigress in order to nurture the mother back to health. So these are the kind of acts of bodhisattvas informed by the ideals and motivation of bodhicitta, wherein when we think about ourselves, should we really even be able to part with one finger? It's impossible for us to do even such a small thing. So then the practice and the motivation of the bodhisattvas and bodhicitta respectively are something so vast and something so profound. So then continuing with the 21st and the 22nd verse, generating the mind is the central axle of the supreme vehicle path. It is the foundation and the support of all expansive deeds. To all instances of two accumulations, it is like the elixir of gold. It is the treasury of merits containing myriad collections of virtues. Recognizing these truths, the heroic bodhisattvas uphold the precious supreme mind as the heart of their practice. I, a yogi, have practiced in this manner. You who aspire for liberation too should do likewise. So then, as we now understand what do we mean by bodhicitta, and how bodhicitta is the door through which one enters the Mahayana path of practice, then the second line exactly ties into that point. It's the foundation and support of all expansive deeds. So all forms of activities, all forms of engagements that you have that are that are turned towards a spiritual practice should be informed by this altruistic intention of bodhicitta. And this is what it means. It's the foundation and support of all expensive deeds. To all instances of true accumulation, it is like the elixir of gold. So then, in the spiritual practice, merit as well as the accumulation of wisdom. So this is what it means by the two accumulation. So to all instances of two accumulations, it is like the elixir of gold. So how do we perceive gold or a nugget of gold? We hold that to be something precious, and if we hold a nugget of gold to be precious, then how would you hold the elixir of gold? Then we will hold that to be something extremely precious. So then the metaphor that is being used here is that in all instances of accumulating merit and wisdom, it is like the elixir of gold, that it is endlessly supporting, that the altruistic mind of bodhicitta endlessly supports and endlessly gives rise to instances of accumulating merit and wisdom. It's the treasury of merits containing myriad collections of virtues. So it makes the same point in the last line of the 21st verse. Recognizing these truths, the heroic bodhisattvas uphold the precious supreme minds as the heart of their practice. So then, recognizing that these bodhicitta ideal or these altruistic intention of bodhicitta actually gives rise to all instances of accumulating merit as well as wisdom, and then it is an endless well which kind of supports wholesome spiritual practice. And then the heroic bodhisattvas who have taken these vows, who have opened their motivation to the bodhicitta ideals, uphold this altruistic intention as the main thing in their cultivation of practice, as the heart of their practice, as it says here in the verse. Thus. So then it is very important to understand the importance of cultivating bodhicitta in our practice. From the Buddhist perspective, bodhicitta, the wisdom of emptiness, and so forth, are the heart of the practice in the Buddhist tradition. So it's very important to understand the importance and the implications of developing such an intention. For example, if we try to relate it to our own experiences or to the worldly experience, then if everybody is informed by a sense of compassion, informed by a motivation that takes into account other people's suffering, other people's well-being, then suffering the worldly suffering in itself has the possibility to be ended. But this is not the case. So we are always informed by a sense of selfish concern about what we call me and mine. We always are informed by a sense of benefiting only ourselves and what we call ours. So, for example, when we look at the business people or the corporations which produce these processed foods or which produce these processed foods, then they are only dictated and motivated by a sense of profit. They only want to gain profit for their own corporations, their own shareholders, and that's the limit of their motivation. And in order to achieve that, then they begin to put chemicals that are harmful in the food, just motivated by a sense of agreed. But then if the opposite is true, if it is the opposite, how wonderful would it be if corporations are motivated by a sense of altruistic intention, wherein they take into account the well-being of their consumers first rather than profit. Then we realize that it's a matter of motivation in this instance. So this is the implication of cultivating bodhicitta as an ideal or as a practice. Yes. So then, if we do realize that such an altruistic intention is something wonderful and something precious, then we need to actively pursue the causes and conditions that gives rise, that generates such an altruistic intention. Because when we look at the way we pursue worldly things that we hold to be precious, and what do if we see something that we like and something that we think is precious and something that appeals to us, then what do? We always look at where can I get this, and then you walk towards the means to actually get this. If you have to earn some money to buy this, and then we think about, can it be posted to me in this day and age, can it be delivered to me? We think about all these things, about something that we find wonderful, about something that we find precious, or something that appeals to us. So likewise, we should have the same approach towards the towards the altruistic intention of bodhicitta, because as it is established by our own experiences and by investigation, that it is something that appeals to us. It is something wonderful. It is something precious in the sense that it can actually give us a true sense of happiness. Then we should actively investigate the causes and conditions that can generate such a mind within ourselves. So then, herein now we will come to a discussion about how does one begin to generate such a mind. And then in the Buddhist tradition we talk about two ways of generating the bodhicitta intention, or the altruistic intention of bodhicitta. One is through the process of equalizing oneself with the other, exchanging and equalizing the self and others. And the other is through the 7 precepts of causes and fruit.
대단 동해 냠바나 한지 다시 숨어지 이게 찍고지 좀 쉬어도 어때 되게 잡아
디 강디 되게 지딘 지니 되어라기 진짜다 말아. So then before we go into an actual exploration about how to generate such a mind through these two methods, then I think it's important here to remember a verse from Shantideva's A Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, which appeals to our own experiences to come to an understanding about the implications and the importance of developing the altruistic intention, wherein he says that all the happiness in this world comes from a wish to benefit others, and all the suffering in this world comes from a wish to only secure happiness for oneself. So when we look at this verse, then we try to relate it to our own experiences, then it begins to make sense. A true sense of happiness comes from a true sense of empathy and sympathy about other people's well-being. As human beings, we need to develop meaningful relations, and for our meaningful relations, if you are always concerned with selfish pursuits and you're informed by an attitude that only cherishes your own concerns and your own well-being, then it's impossible to achieve a true sense of happiness. And then when we look at these verses, all happiness in this world comes from a wish to truly benefit others, and all suffering in this world comes from wanting happiness only for oneself. Then it begins to make sense, like where our suffering comes from and where our true sense of happiness can be achieved. Also. So then now coming to how one can generate such an altruistic intention, then we talk about there being two methods in the Buddhist tradition. One being the process of equalizing and exchanging the self for others, and then the other one being the 7 precepts of causes and fruit. So we will discuss the first one, which is the process of equalizing and exchanging the self for others. And the pit instruction for this particular method comes from Shantideva's Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, wherein he says that when you and others are equal, in the sense that when you and others are equal, then you should first come to an acceptance of this fact. You should come to an acceptance of this fact. Now, what does he mean by when you and others are equal, you should come to an acceptance of this fact? He means that you should recognize that just as you want happiness, others also want happiness. And just as you do not want suffering, then you also, just as you do not want suffering, then others do not want suffering. So first, you need to come to a radical, a complete acceptance of this basic fact. When you and others are equal, then you should come to accept this. Then suffering and happiness are equal. So that if conceptions of suffering and happiness are equal, then cherish all beings, cherish all beings as your own. So just as you do not want to suffer, others do not want to suffer, and just as you do not, just as you want happiness for yourself, then others want happiness for yourself. So if you come to a radical and complete acceptance of this fact, then now work towards cherishing all beings as you will cherish yourself. Yes. So then, this is the instruction, coming to a complete and radical acceptance of the fact that we are all same in wanting happiness and not wanting suffering. And when you come to an acceptance of this fact, then you can begin to cherish others as you would cherish yourself. And then the text, Shatideva's Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, goes on to how to actually practice this. Now, you need to work towards benefiting or elevating the suffering of others, because as you suffer, you wish to be free from suffering yourself in moments of suffering. Then you should actively work towards elevating the suffering of others, and then elevating the suffering of others. And then one should also actively look towards benefiting others, because others are sentient beings just like you. And as you call yourself a sentient being, and when you are benefited or when you are helped by someone else, you feel how do you feel? So likewise, you should actively engage in benefiting others. That's all. So then we'll stop here right now and break for lunch.